Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes was described as a figure whose name alone sent excitement rippling through NFL fans everywhere, and for 4 years he had been portrayed as the golden child of Kansas City, a player whose dazzling arm, uncanny vision, and improvisational style repeatedly flipped games upside down and left defenses in disarray. Yet when the defending AFC champions began a new season burdened with both expectation and the sting of last year's Super Bowl defeat, something about the atmosphere felt different, as if the aura of invincibility surrounding them had thinned and the usually explosive Chiefs were struggling to ignite, and the grand stage had been set in São Paulo, Brazil, where the Olympians Arena was filled to capacity, the stands vibrating with anticipation as the Chiefs prepared to face the Los Angeles Chargers, a rival eager to dethrone them. And for the first time in a long while, Kansas City appeared vulnerable, with Mahomes, usually the maestro, conducting offensive fireworks, finding difficulty in jump-starting his team's rhythm, his passes sailing just beyond reach, his receivers losing footing, defenders closing the space too quickly, and the pocket collapsing a fraction of a second too early, the tension in the air thick with uncertainty, though those who had followed Mahomes knew that counting him out was never wise. And midway through the third quarter, when Kansas City trailed and the offense faltered, he did what he had always done best, seizing the game with his own hands, sprinting through defenders as the pocket crumbled, tucking the ball tight and rushing forward with churning legs, leaping bodies around him, until he sliced through the chaos and crossed into the end zone, delivering a rushing touchdown that electrified the São Paulo crowd and narrowed the Chargers' lead to a single point, igniting sudden hope on the Kansas City sideline. Though football rarely followed scripts, and as the Chiefs pressed forward, energized by their quarterback's resolve, Mahomes soon scanned the field with trademark composure and unleashed a sharp downfield laser, the ball landing securely in the hands of Kelce, who looked fully recovered and in dominant form, hauling in a 37-yard touchdown that erupted the arena and cut the deficit to 2. The magic of Kansas City flashing back into existence for a moment, though alongside the brilliance, there were cracks in the Chiefs' armor, with wide receiver Rashee suspended for 6 weeks, leaving a glaring void in the passing game, and Xavier, the young speedster hailed as a breakout star, forced out of the contest after a brutal shoulder hit, leaving Mahomes surrounded by unfamiliar targets with shaky reliability, and the offense, once a blur of movement and creativity, devolved into something stilted and predictable, while the defense, usually resolute, appeared porous, with lineman Kais Jones looking slow, off rhythm, and unable to disrupt the Chargers' advance, and Jawan Taylor, the highly paid tackle, repeatedly drawing costly penalties that drained momentum and fueled fan frustration, small mistakes accumulating into larger setbacks, and by the final whistle the Chiefs had lost their season opener, a rare scene in the Mahomes era. Though losses were natural data points, this particular defeat carried a heavier weight, not because of the score itself, but because of the rising uncertainty now clouding their season's path, as injuries mounted and suspensions pushed untested players into prominent roles, suddenly making Kansas City look ordinary, and naturally the spotlight swung toward Mahomes, long recognized as the face of the franchise and the man counted on to conjure wins from thin air. Yet as he stood on the sideline with helmet removed and eyes locked on the field, the pressure surrounding him was unmistakable. Reporters buzzing about the offense's lack of rhythm, the shortage of reliable receivers, and the possibility that the season could slip before it truly began, while Kelce, usually radiating bravado, found himself caught in both highs and lows, at one moment punched in the face by a Chargers defender but refusing retaliation, instead channeling his fire into a perfectly timed touchdown that once more reminded the league why he remained the premier tight end. Though even his heroics failed to hide the team's growing problems, for without Rice and worthy Mahomes had precious few trustworthy options, the passing attack shrinking into checkdowns and short gains, drive stalling, and the magic seemingly absent, prompting new questions among fans unaccustomed to such scenes under Mahomes, who now faced inquiries of whether this was the start of decline or merely a stumble, whether coaches could patch the issues before momentum slid away, and most crucially, how he would respond under such mounting pressure, with the immediate future uncertain as the Chiefs prepared to return home to face the Philadelphia Eagles, another contender with championship aims who offered no sympathy to weakened rivals, while Worthy's MRI loomed as a key determinant of whether he would return in time or force Mahomes to rely on unproven teammates under blinding lights. And within the locker room, a mix of tones emerged, veterans urging patience and perspective, reminding rookies that one game could not define a campaign, while coaches buried themselves in tape, adjusting schemes and groupings, and Mahomes, steady before the media, refused to cast blame, shouldering responsibility himself, though beneath his composure the urgency was undeniable. The NFL a relentless battleground where slow starts quickly became lost seasons. Yet Kansas City had always been known to thrive in chaos, with adversity sharpening focus and fueling creativity, and in past years, when odds stacked against them, Mahomes had invented ways to win, whether with a no-look throw, an unorthodox sidearm, or a desperate scramble at the last second, acts that turned impossibility into routine. And though the challenge was now greater, with defenses trained on Kelce and key teammates absent, it became a test of his leadership, resilience, and adaptability, and for fans that was where flickers of hope still glowed. Because Mahomes was never merely a quarterback, but a phenomenon whose confidence had elevated Kansas City from irrelevance to perennial contention, and if anyone could steer them through storms, it was him. Though the season now brimmed with questions, whether the offensive line could be tightened, whether a new receiving weapon would emerge, whether the defense could provide crucial stops in tight games, and those answers would unfold week by week, play by play, moments of brilliance interspersed with heartbreak, with all eyes fixed firmly on Mahomes as the stage broadened, the stakes rose, and the world's gaze lingered. The notion that one early loss did not seal a season, but the manner of response could define an era, determining if Kansas City would rally and chase another title run, or if the fissures would widen until their dynasty crumbled into memory. Though no matter what transpired, the certainty remained that with Mahomes leading, the narrative was unfinished, leaving fans watching breathless for the next chapter in the saga of the Chiefs. A reminder that football was as much about resilience as triumph, and if you are gripped by this unfolding story, don't forget to subscribe, as the ride promises to hold more drama ahead. And while coaches tinkered with solutions and players battled injuries, Mahomes was portrayed as embracing the storm, knowing that greatness was forged not in ease but in the fire of adversity, his presence alone enough to convince Kansas City faithful that the fight was far from lost. And as echoes of Brazil faded into preparations for Philadelphia, the conversation carried a sharpened edge. Observers debating whether Mahomes could transform uncertainty into fuel, the outcome unknown yet tantalizing, and in those uncertainties lay the essence of a season, a reminder that the journey defined the legacy more than any single stumble. So stay tuned. Subscribe now to keep up with every twist in this gripping chase, because what awaited was not only a battle for wins, but a test of identity, of whether the Chiefs remained the relentless force they had been, or slipped into the ranks of ordinary teams. And as speculation mounted and practices resumed, the truth lingered in one simple promise, that Mahomes had not written his last chapter. The campaign stretched ahead with opportunities to restore dominance or collapse under strain, and every play carried significance, every drive a chance to reclaim magic, and every week a step toward answering the questions hanging heavy since that loss in Brazil. A beginning that shook confidence, but also set the stage for a story that would be remembered, proving once more that football was a drama lived in moments, and Kansas City, with Mahomes at the helm, was still at its center, ensuring that no matter the obstacles, the saga would continue, the outcome uncertain but the spectacle guaranteed. And you should subscribe right now so you don't miss the battles to come, because the season was far from over and the legend still had pages left to be written.